there's something beautiful about being a woman, and there's something beautiful about my femininity, and I'm going to miss it if I remain competing with his masculinity. Actually, the Lord's asking me to be fully myself, and I'm not doing that because I'm just in competition with him.
Ultimately, that's what's missing. If you don't trust your spouse to lead himself and to lead your family, then submitting is like who's going to sign themselves up to just get pushed all around?
That whole passage, if you go to verse 33
In Ephesians,
Ephesians 5:33, each of you love your own wife as himself, and let the wife respect her husband. And so if I were to boil down submission, it would be love and respect.
when it comes to culture and submission in marriage, a lot of things that come to mind for the average person would be the trad wife movement. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Is that biblical submission? This statistic honestly blows my mind a little. 89.5% of the people who watch or listen to this podcast regularly aren't yet subscribers to the show. So before we dive in, could I ask you one thing? If this podcast has ever helped you, if you care about honest, unfiltered conversations around God's design for sex, dating, and relationships, would you hit subscribe? It's free and it helps us more than you know. And our promise to you is this: we'll do everything in our power to make this show the best it can be. We'll take your feedback, we'll keep answering your toughest questions, and there's no conversation around God's design for sex and relationships that we'll shy away from. Thank you. Hey friends, welcome to the Let's Talk About It podcast. My name is Ellis Madry, and today we are having an awesome conversation on submission in marriage. Has anyone ever uttered that sentence? An awesome conversation and submission in marriage. But here's the deal. We get people talking about some biblical submission in our comments all of the time. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go for it. And so we brought on for this conversation 3 of the absolute best, just godliest, most beautiful women that I know. And so I will intro these women for you really quickly. First, we have Lauren Valentin. She is in the studio. Next, we have Cindy Taylor. She is also here. Cindy's husband was on a recent episode that we did. And so you should go back and listen to the, it was Men in Different Decades, talking about relationships. And so he brought the fire on that one. And then we have Allie Valentin, who's back with us today. And if you noticed, yes, they do have the same last name. That is because
We're sisters.
Cheers.
they are not sisters. We've got a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law here for this conversation.
Surprise.
I love it. And so first of all, thank you guys so much for just being here and being a part of this conversation. We're so excited to have you. When it comes to submission in marriage, I think there's a lot of narratives that float around about this topic. The world hears submission in marriage and they're like, it's a trap. You know what I mean? Like that's the absolute worst thing. They picture women losing themselves and just, disappearing into a marriage. And then you have, a Christian perspective. And I'm putting, for those who are listening and not watching, I'm putting air quotes around it because I think there have been sects of the church that have used a message of submission to keep women small or keep them controlled. And I would say that all 4 of us have experienced a biblical godly submission in our marriages that would be neither of those narratives. And I believe that God's design is neither of those narratives as well. Mm-hmm. And so what we're going to unpack today is, okay, so what is God's design for a biblical wife? Like, what does that actually look like? And one of the reasons that I brought the 3 of you on is because all 3 of you are radical, powerful leaders, in each of your own right. You're leading ministries. Lauren, you're on the senior leadership team at our church. Allie, you and your husband run Bethel Global Response. Cindy, you and your husband are our missions pastors. I mean, you guys all are leading alongside, in official capacities alongside your husbands. And yet you hold a value for relationship and marriage done according to God's design. And so I'm stoked to have this conversation with you guys today.
It's gonna be fun.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I want to do, typically when we have a panel of guests on, we start with some rapid fire questions, just so the audience can get an understanding of who it is we have in the studio with us today. And so I just have 3 rapid fire questions for each of you, and we'll just go, Lauren, we'll start with you. First, how long have you been married?
In June, it will be 15 years.
Okay. Cindy?
We're going to come up on 27 years.
Okay, love it. Allie?
And 5.
5. Okay, I love it. And in case you're doing the math, do y'all want to give a little breakdown?
Don't think about it too hard.
Right.
Jason and I got married in 2011. And when we did, he had 3 kids from his previous marriage. And they were 12, 9, and 6 at the time. So Allie is married to my oldest stepson, Elijah.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, second rapid fire question. One word your husband would use to describe you, and is he right?
Don't start with me.
Okay. Allie?
This one is so hard. And I've contemplated, like, do I tap into Elijah's serious side or like his playful side, his sentimental side? I think I'm just going to go with a dream, because he tells me that all the time. You're my dream. So we'll just leave it there. We'll leave it sweet today. Yeah.
That's sweet. Is he right? I would say yes.
Sure. Yeah.
He's right. He's right.
He's for sure right. Yeah. Cindy, what about you?
For me, I cheated and asked his input.
I love it.
And there were several words I was like, no, I'm not saying that word. But I think we settled on one of a kind.
Love it. I love it. One of a kind. And
which is a hyphenated word.
It
right?
is. That's
one hyphenated word.
That's right. I love it. Okay. Lauren?
I don't know. I have no idea what he would say. I tried to text him right before we started, and he didn't get back to me fast enough. I think he would say loving.
Okay.
Which would incorporate lots of he would break that down in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
But we'll go there.
I
think he's right.
And then my last rapid fire question for you guys is, what's one stereotype of a submissive wife that does not fit you?
Quiet.
You stole mine. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Both of you would say quiet. What about you, Cindy?
I definitely have opinions on things.
I love it. Do you voice them?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I love it. So before we dive into the conversation, I think it would be good for us to have a working definition of submission. This is what the dictionary would say submission is. Submission refers to the act of yielding to authority or the condition of being humble or obedient. But I really love the way Ephesians 5 paints the full picture, because so many times I feel like when we have this conversation, it goes straight to wives should submit to their husbands and skips over where this portion of scripture actually starts, which is in verse 21. And so I'll just read it. Ephesians 5, 21 through 27. It says this: submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And then it says, wives, submit to your own husbands as you do the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he's the Savior. And now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. And then it says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. I guess my question for you guys first and foremost would be, why do you think in regular culture or in Christian culture, we so often skip over the submit to one another and just go straight to the wives submit to your husband part?
I think there's a tendency to want to find the need to determine equality in this scripture. I think we often jump to better versus less than versus anything else. So to me, I think like we immediately jump to, oh, there's now 2 people we're talking about who's better than the other, versus the fact this is something that applies to everyone, right? If we're jumping to the verse prior to that about submitting to each other in the fear of the Lord, which then requires something from everyone involved, right? If they don't have fear of the Lord, then what are we submitting to? And I think even the verse prior to that, just above that is beautiful. It's talking about the will of the Lord. If the will of the Lord is for us to be submitted to him and to each other in the fear of the Lord, there must be something profound that comes out of that. But I think the tendency is to look for the equality piece in that. It's like, who's better than the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of it just depends on the lens that you're going to look through. And so, Allie, you just said that beautifully, because if we do pick up the lens of the world and just a lot of the media that we're getting, that kind of thing, that lens will lead us to comparison and competition.
We have almost probably everyone on the planet would have a mental picture of what it looks like for men and women to function in culture together. And culturally, there's a dominating narrative that women are less loud, less powerful, less all the words that we often associate with the word submission. Women more naturally fall into some of those categories in people's heads. And I think we skip over the mutual submission bit, because in our very human brains, it's almost subconscious. It just kind of like makes sense, quote, culturally. But I think that even when this was written, right? Like when Paul wrote this letter, he was writing to the Ephesians. It would have been very normal for them to have men dominating women. That was their culture. Men dominated women. They could have wives. Men didn't need to be sexually exclusive with their wives. Women were expected to be exclusive with their husbands. There was an oppressive nature to their culture. And so that narrative, like there's not many cultures on the planet where women are the dominating gender.
Sure.
It's much more normal, just in culture context, for people to consider women being the ones that submit. So I think that we bring those narratives to the table.
Sure.
And I think Jesus has a lot to teach us about how that's not
Oh,
the
definitely.
case.
A couple months ago, we had Cole Zick on the podcast, and he said, if I could give one piece of advice to any young men who are walking into marriage, he was like, get acquainted with Ephesians 5. And he was talking specifically about this passage. And he was like, you have to understand what it means to truly lay down your life for your wife. Because it's interesting that we talk, it starts with mutually submit to each other, and then it goes into wives submit to your husbands, and then it goes into the call of the husband, which is even more sacrificial, which is lay down your life like Jesus did the church. In preparation for this conversation, a friend, you know what, we should we'll edit this into the podcast and post. It was an Instagram post from a church that was having this conversation. And the first slide was like, if your marriage looks like this, and it was a man on stage and his wife was bowing down to him. Then the next slide was, then you've probably missed this. And it was him on his face, like laying prostrate on the ground to signify service of like, I am laying down my life for you. And I just thought, oh, what a beautiful picture of like, this is what God intended from this passage. I wonder what you guys would say. What do you think the average woman thinks when she hears the phrase submission in marriage? Like, what's the picture that comes to mind?
I think most people in 2026, I think that when women hear submit to your husbands, I think there's a lot of do what he, assuming messages like you have to do what he tells you to do. He gets the final decision on everything. You have to run everything past him.
Sure.
You have to do what he wants when he wants it. Those kinds of things.
And how do you think that differs from God's design?
Entirely.
Fair.
We're doing it again.
Like, listen, I can talk all day about this. I don't want to dominate the conversation. If anybody else wants to chime in.
What do you guys think?
Chiming into how we think that is viewed in 2026.
Yeah, what do you think the average woman pictures versus what do you think God's design actually is for submission?
I mean, I think I would agree with that whole statement. It's quiet. It's whatever he says. My opinion doesn't matter. I'm not as valued or as important as him. Therefore, I will just do what he says. I think it's entirely different, as you would say. I think a lot of it probably goes back to the very beginning when we see man and woman created, and we see. I think. There's so much. I'll maybe throw this out there, and we can go from there. Yeah. But I think it begins there with Eve being created as a helpmate, which we also always get hung up on that within culture as well, or within the church. And we immediately begin to think that's less than, again, within the context of man and woman being created, when in fact that word, Ezer, the first time that women's being spoke of in the Bible is actually not just helpmate, but that means ally. That means somebody that comes in and helps him in a time of deep need. Like he couldn't do it on his own. He needed somebody to come and be his rescue, to come and be. The only other time that word is used in the Bible is in reference to God saving a nation.
The Holy Spirit is the helper.
Yeah. And so I'm like, if we go back to the very beginning, I think we have to address what was a woman created to be in the first place? And it wasn't to be just whatever he wanted. It was to be an ally to him. It was actually to be a deep help to him in a time of need. So I think that's where I begin.
Yeah. That's so good.
It's beautiful. I love that. I think the only other thing I would add to these amazing things that have been said is simply when that whole passage, if you go to verse 33, it sort of wraps everything up.
In Ephesians?
Ephesians 5:33. It goes through everything that you've read, a few more verses. But then in 33, it says, nevertheless, let each of you love your own wife as himself, and let the wife respect her husband. And so if I were to boil down submission, it would be love and respect.
Cindy, would you believe that when we had your husband on the podcast mere weeks ago, he quoted the exact same verse?
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. How awesome.
Well, we've been living it, working through it, fighting through it for 27 years.
What does that look like practically in y'all's relationship?
Oh my goodness. It's everything with it's how I understand what would make him, when he feels disrespected, it's probably because I felt unloved, or there's just this cycle.
Sure.
And if you get going on the cycle in that direction, it's like, whoa, okay, I'm not feeling loved right now. And and I'm showing it by not being respectful right now. And so that's when you just have to put the brakes on and honestly and vulnerably just say, hey, we've got to stop, take a breath, and put the break. So that for us has given us language and vision where I begin to understand more. And it's like, okay, I know that if I go down this road more, it's just disrespecting him. And there's nothing he wants more than to love me well. And but if ever, he's rarely done this.
Yeah.
But if I'm not feeling loved or heard in a situation, then it becomes a cycle. So
yeah, that's so good. One thing that I think probably all four of us could agree on is the fact that we have found in God's true design for submission in marriage a freedom, which is the exact opposite of what most people think of when you hear submission. I wonder if, and I'll open this up to any of you, why does God's design for submission in marriage actually create a freedom for women rather than an oppression?
I think that it's interesting how God explains that the husband is meant to lay his life down the way that Christ laid his life down for the church. And ultimately, when Jesus calls us into relationship with him, our whole life journey is a journey of deep, deep surrender. and you start surrendering a little and you think it's a lot. And then you realize as you get older and you mature and you go through more of life, the invitation is into like infinite surrender. There's no end. Like there's no, until you are gone off the planet Earth. There is an infinite journey into deeper surrender. And we're told in scripture that is where we find the deepest freedom. And like in our journey with the Lord, we only surrender more and more and more as we trust him more and more and more.
Right.
And the same is true in marriage, is that when Jesus invites us into a covenant where love built on trust makes space for deep surrender, the more you trust, the more you grow together, the deeper you love, it is ultimately an invitation into deeper surrender. So use the word submission maybe.
Sure.
And so I think in that way, I don't want to get too like existential about it, but I think it's tricky when people approach marriage like it's a societal construct.
Sure.
Like it is a mysterious, very supernatural thing.
Yeah.
It isn't actually just something that we can social construct or, draw a family tree about.
Right.
It's a very supernatural experience. And I think when we lean into the spirit side of what is marriage, we explore the mysteries of it the way that we do in our relationship with Jesus. And so that said, I just think that those two are parallel journeys. Like if you're in a marriage, the invitation is into deep freedom that only comes as you build trust and choose to let go and surrender and lay your lives down for one another.
That's so good. Allie, your walk with this has been an interesting one because you married someone who was a few years younger than you, and you guys got married also pretty young. And so I wonder what your experience has been as you've kind of grown in this area of like, how do I trust this person who you're like, first of all, we got married as children, it feels like. And second of all, he was even younger. So like, how do I grow in my trust for you so that I can embody what God designed for submission?
It's probably been a longer journey for myself than before I ever met Elijah. I think back to just the fact that this topic itself is something I heard my whole life growing up in the church. And it was probably something that I tried to like just turn a little bit of a blind eye towards, because I also saw the flip side of that there was this level of like equality that was worth fighting for within the church. And I think there was just something in me from a young age. Like I just had this like fight, like women, like girl, it is good to be a girl and I'm going to prove to the world. Like I am strong and capable. Like I remember being in the 5th grade, the boys wouldn't let me play flag football with them. And I got people to sign this petition because I was like, oh no, I'm a girl and I am capable. And will you sign my petition? Because this is just not right. This is unfair. And so
it's
I think
unjust.
Yes, it's just unjust. Like that is just, it's just in there somewhere for some reason. And so when I got into marriage, obviously the reality of what you believe becomes, it's just like in your face. Like you cannot deny the fact that you have feelings towards that. And then, of course, the fact that I married Elijah and he was freshly 21 and I was 25. We were kids and he was maybe a little bit more of a kid than I was a kid, but we were young. And so there was definitely a journey for the both of us about what does this actually look like in marriage and in relationship, which led me on a journey, I think, of actually really discovering for myself, what does it mean to submit? I need revelation from the Lord because I'm going to continue to stay in competition with my husband for the rest of my life. And the ugliest stuff comes out of you when you're in competition with somebody, right? And so I just remember specifically my dad saying to me when I told him that it was conversation about wanting to marry Elijah. I can't remember anything else he said to me about our potential marriage, but he said to me, Allie, you and Elijah are very different in a lot of ways. You're also very similar. And the second you guys get off of the same team, this thing will fall to the ground. And I was like, what is he talking about? I don't know. I totally understood, because the second that the temptation was there to be in competition with him and to prove to him and to the world that I was just as valuable as him game over. It was a nightmare. I mean, Lord help us. It was bad. And mainly for me, because I spent all day not free. I was trying to prove to the world and to him that I am valuable and capable and my voice matters. And so that's a bit of probably the behind the scenes journey of what it looked like for me to like actually ask the hard questions about what does it look like to be in submission to him, because I've really tried to ignore the conversation because I haven't wanted to look at the truth in case it means that I'm less than.
That's a scary one.
Yeah,
That's a scary one.
Yeah.
Would you say there was a breakthrough moment for you?
Yeah, maybe like a breakthrough season.
Okay.
I don't know if there's like a specific moment, but I just think back to this season when Elijah got a promotion at work and I could not celebrate him. Like I was like, sounds so ugly. Every time I share this, I'm always like, God, Allie, I can't believe that was real. But it was real. Like I just couldn't. And I think that's sort of what led me to obviously this journey that I'm talking about. But going on that journey of diving into scripture and realizing, oh, there's something beautiful about being a woman. And there's something beautiful about my femininity. And I'm going to miss it if I remain competing with his masculinity. And actually, the will of the Lord is for him to be a husband and for me to be a wife. And those are two different roles that are equal. They're just very different. And I can't spend the rest of my life trying to be him, because actually the glory of the Lord will not be manifest on the earth if we're both trying to be him. There's a reason that he has both man and woman in a covenant relationship, right?
Right.
So I think that was probably like the overarching revelation I had of like, oh my goodness, if I keep on this journey, actually the Lord's asking me to be fully myself, and I'm not doing that because I'm just in competition with him. I think that maybe answers.
Yeah,
that
man,
question.
that's so powerful, Allie. Cindy, for you, I mean, you're almost 30 years in.
That makes me sound so old.
It's so cool.
It is awesome. It is truly awesome. And some people may not know this, but 15 of those years were spent on the mission field, like reaching unreached people. You know, I mean, you guys are missionaries at heart to your absolute core. And I wonder if there was a moment in these decades that you and John have spent together where submission, it felt like cost you something real.
One moment, or maybe like,
whatever springs to mind.
there were a lot of moments. I think even our calling was a huge one, because my whole life, well, since I was in 4th grade, that was a long time ago, I wanted to be a missionary in India. And it was my dream. Like I had this moment really where I felt like the Lord had shown me in 4th grade that I was made for India. And so when Jonathan pursued me, he had already learned the Russian language, and I thought, he's going to Russia. I'm not going to Russia. I'm going to India. And so there were all these things. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the Lord actually spoke to me, and I won't get into it now, but I knew that he was God's best for me. And so in saying yes, I laid down, like a 20-year dream.
Wow.
For going to India, or at least 15. I don't know. I mean, there's so many times living in Asia where you're a mom, you have littles, it's a difficult culture, or, just whatever, physically there's difficulties, and then things start going right and you get in a groove, and then your husband's really feeling the leading of the Lord to go this direction, and you're like, but I don't have any of this out there, So we had multiple experiences like that where I had to really lay down community, friendship for my kids, like things like that. But I can tell you that not one time in 27 years has my husband just made a decision like that. He's not a dictator at all. He's never approached any major decision or change or shift with just saying, I heard the Lord and we have to do this. I know it's hard, but we have to. He's always brought me in. There's been so many times where I would have chosen the lazy route and just said, can you just decide on this? Maybe not the big things, but like, babe, really, just go ahead and decide. And he really won't do that. He just wants to hear my perspective. And because often our understanding, very often it's limited. And once we gain, that the other angle, it's like, oh, that's so helpful, actually. So I did have to, surrender, like Lauren was talking about earlier. It's so many times you're holding on to things and you don't realize. And as soon as you can recognize that, it's just like, okay, actually my husband is really in tune and he's, we're going to go for it. So,
yeah. And it also helps when you can trust your husband's walk with the Lord too.
yeah. Oh
my gosh. When you just know, you're like, oh, okay. You know what? Maybe this isn't what I would have chosen, but I know your character and I know your walk with God and I know how submitted you are to him. And it makes it that much, I wouldn't say easier, but it more palatable to be like, okay,
absolutely.
You're a trustworthy person. I know you hear from the Lord. Lauren, for you, I mean, you got married to someone who already had 3 kids. You came into a family that was in existence. Then you're leading in multiple areas. You're doing, so much. I would say, you don't hear the words senior leader and think submissive. You know what I mean? And yet it almost seems like a contradiction, but this is the life that you live. I wonder how you have held the tension of submission and also fully embodied what God has on your life to lead.
Yeah, it's been a topic from the very beginning. I remember when Jason and I were dating, I had been, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, Redding's kind of a small town. There's not like loads going on here besides our church, which makes up, I don't know, a good like 8% of the town. So I graduated university and had plans, and this was a stop on the map unto my future. That's what I thought. And so from the beginning, dating Jason, I knew that dating him and taking it seriously meant considering Redding a home.
Sure.
For the indefinite future. Just this is where he was from. His kids were rooted here. His family is here. And so there was a lot to weigh. And I remember through our dating journey feeling like, wow, I've never felt so taken care of by somebody. I've never felt so much trust for someone. I've never felt like so safe with a man in my life. And yet it was hard for me to wrap my head around, quote, submitting to really, a lot of it was logistical. It was like, you're signing up for this if you say yes. Like there's not a lot I can change about the fact that I have to stay in Shasta County and I have 3 kids. And this is, a lot of my future has already been decided in that way. But I'll never forget a conversation that we had together where I was wrestling. I knew I loved him. I wanted to marry him, but I was scared. And I remember him saying specifically one night, he said, if your life feels smaller saying yes to me, please don't say yes. And I was like, and it was in the context of a conversation about my dreams, the things that I felt like God had called me to. I love big cities. I love cultures. I love traveling. I love lots of things that you don't really experience when you live in Redding with 3 small children.
Yeah.
And that mattered to him deeply. We couldn't logistically map it out at that time, but that it mattered to him felt like safety and felt like permission. It felt like a submission. It felt mutual. Yeah. It felt like a mutual submission. Like I could feel that he was for me in all these ways that we couldn't quite map out yet.
Sure.
And so I remember telling my parents specifically and some of my friends who were concerned about my life choices, like you could do anything in the world and go anywhere in the world and you're going to marry a divorced guy with 3 kids. Like you They grew up with me. Like this is out of the box for me.
Sure.
And I just remember saying, I can't explain it. I feel like my life is going to matter so much. I feel like my life is going to be so big. And I was at the time, like you don't really know what you're saying yes to, right? Like you don't know what you have to endure to get to that.
And praise God, you don't know.
And praise God, you don't know, right? You wouldn't say yes. But I just remember thinking, at the time I was as in love with that idea as I was with him. Like I was drawn to this. My life has to make a difference. It has to matter. And I'm choosing someone who is willing, come hell or high water, to see my dreams fulfilled with his meager resources. Wow. What a thought. Like what a guy,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a journey from the beginning.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But something that I couldn't have said yes if I didn't feel that from him. I would have never.
Yeah.
I would have never.
And that goes back to the trustworthiness. It's
Yes.
like, I can trust you with my dreams.
Absolutely.
And therefore I can submit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How interesting. So I want you guys to kind of walk me practically through a disagreement. Okay.
Which one and how many?
I love it. Okay. You don't see eye to eye. There's a decision to be made on something that matters. So what does submission look like practically in real time? How do decisions get made when you genuinely, it's like we're at a stalemate. We do not see eye to eye here.
I'll say for us, when we get into stalemate, we always invite outside input. And that doesn't speak a lot to the submission bit, but I do think that it's one of my greatest pieces of marital advice is just to get help. Like when we're at a stalemate, we do. But I will say this, when we are in a decision and we don't necessarily agree, I will say normally one of us feels much stronger than the other.
Okay.
And we have found in our marriage that we have like this unspoken rule, although we speak about it, that whoever has the higher standard or the higher need or the stronger conviction in an area, if the others, like if we're at a stalemate, the person with the highest standard, strongest conviction, deepest need is the one who makes that decision. And we'll usually test it out, try it out, and adjust course if it wasn't right?
Yeah.
But for Jason, he's very comfortable. You grow in trust, right? So there's things that I'm very comfortable him making decisions on, and there's things that he's learned to really trust my intuition on. And then there's areas where I just know in conflict, he has a deeper conviction and a higher standard for how we behave inside of conflict. So we do it his way.
Okay.
And I have a deeper conviction and a higher standard for what it looks like at mealtime around the table with our family. So we do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've grown to really love each other's way. But when we can't initially agree, that's usually the metrics we use to make a decision.
I love that. I think that's so practical. Well, let me talk to this side of the room. Talk to me about the moments when you honestly think your husband is making the wrong call.
I call Lauren. No, I'm just kidding. But maybe sometimes.
It's happened once.
Sure. And so that's the outside counsel piece.
Yeah, definitely.
We love that.
Definitely outside counsel does a lot. A lot.
I love it.
I think for myself, often it's calling for outside help, regardless if Elijah's coming to get that outside help with me or without me. However, I have had to personally probably humble myself as well in this sort of submission piece, where I remember this moment when we first got married where Elijah, I could like tell the weight of the world was on his shoulders. And I remember him just like having this moment where he looked at me and he's like, I'm just realizing like I can't die. That sounds so extreme. Okay, he's a little extreme. But I was like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? And it was like, it's the first time that he felt like this insane amount of responsibility for another person that I will just never understand, maybe for my kids, but I can't understand what he was feeling in that moment. Like, and I think it kind of goes back to maybe like the roles that we're playing within our marriage. Like Lauren was saying about just like, if you have a deeper conviction or a higher standard for something, I think I've had to have moments where I've humbled myself and go, I can't see all sides of this. And I know Elijah, like when I decided to marry him, it was my decision. Like I signed up and was like, I want him to be my husband, lead my family. Like there's going to be times that I'm not going to understand the full scope of why he's saying yes or no to something. Granted, that obviously comes within reason. Like I'm not talking about extremes, but I think I've probably had to hold on to that sometimes where I'm like, you know what, in this moment, I think my tendency would probably be to continue to express my opinion. But if I feel like he's hearing it and respecting it, it's easier to go, okay, all right, whatever.
It's like, no, it's not just that you don't understand. I'm realizing you disagree.
Yes.
No amount of words or re-explanations is going to cause you to see this my way. I love it. Cindy, what about in seasons where women would say, and I'm not saying this applies to you, but I'm asking for your wisdom here. What about in seasons where women find that their husbands are not leading well or not leading at all? What does submission apply in those seasons, and what should it look like?
I honestly can say I've never ever felt that or experienced that. It's just not at all in my journey or my story anywhere.
Sure.
I do think there can't be any places where submission does not apply.
Right.
But it's a matter of, I think one simple way to look at it is often we have this, two sides, like you were talking about, Allie, like this, is it him? Is it her? Is it whose voice? And I think that we have to always remind ourselves it's the Lord's voice. It's not like, do I have a voice in this? Or my husband's voice is so huge in this. It's not even the right question. The right question is, am I hearing the Lord's voice in this and obeying and being sensitive with that? Because I think, to your previous question, I was going to say that I just say, honey, if you'll just stop and listen for a minute, you'll recognize that I'm right. Like I would love to say that sometimes, like just let me explain one more little piece of this and then you'll get it that I'm right. But it's when I'm so caught up in getting my voice out, my voice heard. And it's so not about that.
Can I chime in there, Ellis? I think this question, I bet so many women are in that dynamic.
Yes.
Just in sitting with married couples and working with people for any length of time. If you're a pastor, you have encountered this.
Yeah.
And I do think, so back to Ephesus, would have been real normal for a husband to be dominating, to want to make all the decisions, to be oppressive. In 2026, in the Western world, there is oppression of women, of course, but there is an epidemic problem that we have of fatherless homes and men who do not want to be present. And that's a different sort of hardship, potentially. So I think that if Jesus was speaking, and he is speaking, by the way, still speaking.
He's got opinions.
His word never changes.
And I would say truth.
Yes, his word doesn't change. And so I think what he's describing in Ephesians is an ecosystem where there is a mutual submission. If you're going to choose to be inside of marriage, which is in Christ, it's a choice to be married. And if you're going to choose a life of marriage, then the way that you thrive, here is the ecosystem that causes thriving. And in 2026, in the Western world in particular, there's a lot of marriages that are not thriving because women feel like their husbands don't know how to lead, are not leading, are passive, are not spiritual leaders. Maybe they're, not present dads, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's problems all over the map, but this is an epidemic right now. And I think what we're seeing is that if you're having trouble submitting to your husband because you do not respect the way that he's choosing to lead himself or your family in any certain season, then you have to backtrack, because you don't start with submission. You start by laying down your life, which builds loads of trust.
Right.
So I think on a very practical level, I would want to say to anybody in that boat, there is a lot of trust building tools that you can add to your tool belt to grow that, because ultimately that's what's missing. If you don't trust your spouse to lead himself and to lead your family, then submitting is like who's going to sign themselves up to just get pushed all around? Or, nobody wants to live inside of chaos. Ultimately, our role is to bring order to chaos.
Right.
If you can't trust that your husband is going to be your partner in bringing order to whatever chaos you're facing, then you're going to rise up and try to fill the gap, because our job, it's innate. Like if we're leading a family, we want to bring order to that chaos. So I'm saying, if you're finding yourself go, I can't submit to that, then that's just an indicator that there's something under the hood going on.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably a breakdown of trust. And so there's probably a load of rebuilding trust and practical, like pouring into the emotional bank account of your marriage to build trust with one another, so that you can get to a spot where you're respecting each other's decisions. But it doesn't start there.
One of my favorite stories that Lisa Bevere tells is from the early years of her marriage. And she kind of tells a story about how she was falling into a pattern of mothering John, her husband.
Yeah, that's really fun. That's like so fun, huh, girls?
Great.
It's so fun to be the mom.
Totally.
No.
And she was frustrated. Like she was at the end of her rope.
Yeah.
And she talks about her just like, she remembers vividly just ranting to the Lord. Like he this and he this and he this. And I hope I don't misquote her, but she basically said she heard the Lord say, "What is a yoke to you is a mantle to John." And she realized that she had been taking on what his role was and trying to lead, rather than truly trusting him to embody the role of leadership that God had given him. Yeah. And he was anointed to lead, but she was not in that dynamic of their relationship. And how she was like, okay, I'm going to make an internal shift of like, I am going to trust you in this area of our lives, because this is where God's anointed you to lead. And it's a yoke to me, but it's a mantle to you. And I'm just like, wow, what an example. Okay, let me ask you guys this. When it comes to culture and submission in marriage, a lot of things that come to mind for the average person would be the trad wife movement, which is just like super popular right now. I mean, think sourdough making, prairie dresses, this, like living on the home front, and this is what people picture. Some people love it, some people hate it. Is that biblical submission, or is that an aesthetic? Like, where's the line here?
I'm gonna let y'all go for that one. Come on, Allie. Come on, Lauren.
I thought she was gonna. Oh,
go, Allie. You've got
real,
right?
Okay,
do you have an opinion?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an aesthetic. I feel like it's almost just like a fad. Like it's beautiful. It's lovely. Is it totally realistic? Is it for everybody? No, but I think the truth of the word is for everybody. And so that's probably where the line is with that.
Yeah, sure.
I'd agree. I think, there's a lot of days where I'm like, wow, a simple life where I bake bread and
yes,
milk my cow. That sounds lovely. That's so not my life.
And narrate my videos to talk like this.
Yeah. And gentle parenting. And I don't know, add in all of the other. That's a whole other topic, Ellis. I'm not even going to crack that.
Yeah, we'll have you guys on for another podcast about gentle parenting.
I have to say, I recently met, about a year ago, I met a woman who has been such an inspiration to me this last year. She is, she's the CHRO, Chief HR Officer in a Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
She told me the other day how many employees this company has, and it's mind-boggling. Like, I don't even know. I don't remember. It was up in the tens and tens of thousands. Well, so many employees.
Sure.
This woman is a boss in her career. She's probably 10 years older than me. And their entire life, her husband has been a stay-at-home dad. while she has climbed to the absolute top. She couldn't be in a more senior position in her field. And they've made decisions from early days in their marriage that she was meant to pursue her career. And he felt very sure from God that he was meant to stay home with their children, and feels passionately about, they still have one child in high school, 2 that are out. Anyways, the way that they live their life is so opposite of that trend right there. And they are so mutually submitted. And she calls him Mr. Wonderful. And I'm inspired every time I talk to her because of how much love and respect there is between them. And how even in that very untraditional work dynamic, like work-life balance dynamic, she is absolutely submitted to his leadership. So I think it cannot be boxed.
I love it.
I love it. I wonder, to the single woman listening who is going, okay, I know I want to be married. I know I want a relationship. And I want to do things God's way. But I am nervous that marriage is a recipe for me to just disappear. What would you say to her?
I've been in a small group for like 12 years with the same 5 girls. And we were just chatting last night about some things that are happening in culture right now. I'll get there in a second. But what I would say, because of the conversation I just had last night, and something that Allie said a little bit earlier, people do not understand the power of your femininity is so strong and so beautiful. And it is made for a man to partner. You're designed to partner up. When you understand I'm going to use the word superpower, although that is not a biblical word. When you understand the superpower of your femininity, get really acquainted with that. Grow strong in that. That is going to be so attractive to the right kind of man. And my husband always gives single people the advice, build a life that you really love. Like as a single person, build a life that you're very proud of and that you really, really love. And if you're a single woman, journey on really embracing your femininity and leaning into that and understanding like the God-given power inside of your beautiful femininity that is, each woman would be unique and different in that. But I think when you live authentically who God's created you to be, you're the most attractive version of yourself. Side note, the girls and I were talking, and maybe it's because we're all over 40 now, I'm not sure. I just think fashion these days is not lending itself well to like really embracing our femininity.
Yeah, no, that's true.
There is a whole thing going on, which I personally very much enjoy, but I'm already married. And my husband, I can tell you right now, it's not his favorite look on me. But like the like super baggy everything, masculine, masculine clothing, like I'm sorry, I don't think that that's going to do a lot for like the attraction component, which is very significant and important.
Yeah,
that's a side note help for anybody out there. Just maybe like less blazers and trousers, maybe a little bit more.
The blazers have gone too far. The blazers have gone so far.
Totally.
And they just keep getting bigger.
You're going to see me in them. I like it, but I'm just saying.
It's comfortable though. There's a line.
A different subject. This has nothing to do with submission. And that's going to trigger some girls, by the way. There's going to be comments about that.
There is.
I feel passionate about it.
I love it because there is strength in embracing your God-given femininity. Yes. There's a reason why God created us with a feminine design and God created men with a masculine design. And leaning into how God created things is literally leaning into how he wired us to be. And it doesn't surprise me at all that culture would try to shift, women to dress more masculine or, it's, or that culture would try to emasculate men. We're always trying to get a little closer to the middle, which I think is just such a scheme of the enemy. What were you going to say?
I was going to add on to the what would you tell a girl who's scared to lose herself in marriage? And I just remember this little like revelation that I had on that journey of being really scared of all of it. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something really profound about the fact that the ultimate example we have of submission is Christ himself. And from that was just the most profound moment in history, right? When he decided he was equal with God, and in his equality with God, he still humbled himself and submitted himself. And I think what's profound is we have that same invitation as women in marriage, is to step into that beautiful example that Christ expressed for us. That's what we get to do. Like, he's the ultimate example of that. So anyway, I'm just thinking about the woman that's like scared of submission. And on the opposite side of submission is actually something really, really beautiful in your marriage.
Sure. Cindy, what would you say to the woman who is trying to find a man worth submitting to? Like, what should she be looking for?
Wow, that's such a good question. I feel like in a lot of the different tracks of our conversation today, a lot of the different paths we've taken, there are options for us to really run after it, to study it, to figure it out, to, all the things so that I get it right. And I just would encourage them to get off that track and just be so wholly committed to trusting our good Father who has his best and has promised his best. And so I feel like the more that we lean into our intimacy with him, I mean, it's what Allie just shared, but it's also John 13. It's Jesus himself. That last act with his disciples before he went to the cross was to take up that towel and wash their dirty feet. And basically says, if you don't do what I'm doing, you don't understand. You don't have part of me. So I think if we can get our minds around like, all right, I'm not going to go out and find that man. I mean, you can't do that. And well, no, that's not true. You can find a man, but you will not know if it's the one that God has had for you. But once you fully release your grip on that exercise, then you can trust that he's going to be the one bringing that right man to you.
That's so good. Were there things in John that you saw early on that you said, this makes him, like, I can trust him?
Yes. I mean, there definitely was. I'm going to be honest that from the beginning, I met him when I was 17 years old. And from the very beginning of meeting him, it was his goodness and wonderfulness that actually
we have another Mr. Wonderful on our hands.
I was like, he's too good for me, is what I thought. I'm like, I called him the golden boy. And my mom loved the golden boy. So anyway, it's a whole nother story, but I think sometimes, at least for me, my experience was it fed my insecurities, or it, stirred up things like, he's too good for me. I couldn't live with that for the rest of my life. I'd never live up, all these things. And it did take 9 years before we were actually married. So
wow,
I did some growth in that time.
Hallelujah. But what a journey.
Yeah. So I think that for sure, if you're on a track where you're like, Lord, can you help me find the right guy? Like, just know that you can't do it on your own, but lean into the Lord, and it's so in his heart to bring destinies together.
Oh, that's so good. This is kind of my final question, and any of you can take it. And I'm probably opening up a can of worms with the final question. So we love that. But this entire conversation has been geared around submission in marriage specifically. What does submission look like in dating? Is that a thing? Like, how does a woman prepare herself for that type of dynamic in a relationship before you're actually in a covenant? Like, what does that look like? Because I've seen it taken to some unhealthy extremes, and it's like, oh, you're not even married. Like, let's exercise some wisdom. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, what would be some practical wisdom for a single girl or a single woman who's trying to navigate? Well, I know that this is what a godly marriage is supposed to look like, but that's not my season right now.
I would just throw out that you're looking for character in that stage. You're looking to build trust and to see, how does he respond in different, types of situations, the hard and the easy, all that. So I think as you grow and recognizing their character, things are going to be revealed, right? So, but definitely when you have not yet entered into a covenant where the Bible actually says the two shall become one.
Right.
That's not just sexual union. That is actually like your spirits become one. You become so unified. It's just, as Lauren was saying earlier, it is a spiritual experience. And that cannot be true in dating. But that's when you learn. And that's when, you recognize what I want to date someone that I know I could marry.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind that which stage of the game you're in.
Yeah. That's so good. Okay, as we wrap this up, I have this one sentence that I would love for each of you to finish and just kind of to see how you would answer this. Submission isn't blank. It's blank. How would you fill in the blank there?
Say submission isn't bondage, but it's freeing.
That's good.
Yeah. Similarly, I was thinking submission is not oppression. It's an invitation.
That's so good. Cindy?
Submission isn't inferiority. It's an upgrade.
Oh,
Ooh, yeah.
mic drop. That's so good.
Yes.
I love it. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I know we rabbit trailed all over the place on this one, but I so appreciate your wisdom and just your experience and what each of you bring to this conversation. And our entire goal here at Moral Revolution is to equip you, whoever's on the other side of this audio recording or the video, to walk in God's design for sex, for relationships, for sexuality, for identity, and for marriage. And this is one of those conversations that people just get hung up on. And so I hope that as you walk away today, you have some practical takeaways, or maybe you walked into this conversation and you were a little nervous about, what does submission actually look like? Am I, if I'm a woman listening to this, am I going to lose myself in this? If I'm a man, listening to this, how do I lead? And I hope that you walk away from this conversation and you just feel empowered to lean into how God designed marriage and relationship to work, because his way really is the best way. So thank you for joining us on this episode of Let's Talk About It, and we will see you next time. We do this show for one reason: to equip you to walk in wholeness and freedom. We're not here to preach at you. We're here to meet you where you are, to ask hard questions, have awkward conversations, and pursue God's design for sex and relationships together. So if there's something that you're wrestling with, a topic that you want us to tackle, or a question that you've been afraid to ask, leave a comment and let us know. This isn't just our show, it's yours too.